Okay, I have a question here from RKG, who says, I've heard or read very similar discussions from other teachers and those who've had near-death experiences, and I'm probably missing key information about it, but I'm puzzled about this. If the majority of the Earth's population will either be at a high enough vibration to live on the new Earth, and if not, will return to the non-physical realm, why then are the powers that be trying so hard to control and manage the global population now? The ones on the surface who survive, it sounds like, will be few and far between. All that work they're doing right now to create mandatory vax with tattoo ID and so on, why even bother? And, RK, I have to say, I don't know why they're even bothering, but I don't think they know what the options are. They're creating the world they want to have. We are creating the world we want to be in. Those two, are not the same world. And there's more than one Earth. So that seems to be missing from your perception. The dimension that you live in, if you're on Earth in the third dimension, that's one world. But there are, okay, I don't want to confuse you, but just be aware that when there isn't a good way to explain it. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of questions about, well, how is this split going to happen? What's literally going to happen? And we don't know. We just don't know. There are a couple of possibilities. The possibilities are that, those who have done the work of evolving their consciousness, expanding their consciousness, are going to be able to see what's happening very clearly and decide very decisively what they're going to do or not do. And they will set up, if they want to do, they will set up what they're going to do. And if they want to not do, they're going to set things up for themselves so that they're very comfortable not doing whatever that world is doing that they don't want to be part of. There's people who say, oh, it's going to split physically. No, it's not going to split physically. The Earth is as multidimensional as humans are. And a long time ago, when I was talking with the planet, it was clear. She said, and this was in relation to me asking you, could we dig a big hole for a pond? And the answer was, go ahead, do what you need, dig where you need to, dig where you want, et cetera, et cetera. And I was a little surprised at that because there was this total lack of concern that we were wrecking the environment, which is what we hear from the powers that be. And the Earth's response was, I am giving my all, in the hopes that you, the people who live on the planet right now, will evolve. I'm giving you everything. I want you to have everything I've got. And my hope is that you will evolve in and create a whole new Earth and take me with you. And I was like, I'm not sure what to think about that. I'm not sure. It was a long time before I could get my mind around that. And so there are things that we are capable of. How do I say this? Other timelines exist right here, but they're in other frequency zones. And that works just like your television. You change the channel, you don't see what you were just watching. You see whatever's on this next channel. And that's pretty much what happens with timelines. You start diverging from what everybody is doing because you're thinking a little differently. You want something different, etc. These people just continued with the same messes and chaos they've always had. You're thinking about, I want a different kind of world. I want love, peace, joy, cooperation, generosity, beauty, truth, honesty, joy, all of these things to be characteristics of the world that I live in. And I want to be aware of life, and I want to celebrate life, and so on and so forth. And so you start living in that way. And gradually, people see you, you end up demonstrating, this is how I want to live. People watch, people reach naturally for something better, for something higher. The people who can't reach for something better, something higher, the people who only see what they can grab in the moment, and they don't really have any ethics, and they don't have any values other than transitory values. Give me money, give me sex, give me power, that kind of thing. And they're willing to take from others, and they don't care what happens to those others. That's not the kind of world I want to live in. So, those people who don't want to be part of that world are going to make the effort to do something different. And those two worlds, those two ways of living will coexist for quite a long time. But these guys over here that are doing things that have no ethics, no values, they're quite destructive. They are, all things chaotic, etc. They tend to self-destruct. So you have to be over here living as if, you're avoiding that destruction. And eventually you do. So the non-physical realm there isn't just one. There's a number of levels of worlds, and people live in their own world. And those, that's the powers that be. What can I say? They are foolishly chasing their tail. That's it. They're not going to get anywhere. They're not going to have anything long term. They think they're so big, so important, but that's all that work they're doing. They don't consider it work. That's their game. They want power. They want control. They can control and manage and carry on until there's nothing left to control and manage and carry on with. People learn. Most people learn the hard way. I think I've learned everything the hard way. Eventually, you have to wake up, and you have to grow up, and you have to acknowledge, what do I do with this power, this consciousness, this time, this energy? Once you've experienced a few miracles, you know the power of consciousness. You know the power of energy. And consciousness is energy in motion. Energy is consciousness in motion. Once you've tasted that, it's like, what are we doing over here? Oh my. Yeah. So that is it really and truly, people are going to pick their level, and they're going to go where they're comfortable. And if they don't have any vision, and they're not comfortable reaching for something better, or they don't think they can get there, so they give up, or that's what their reality will be. There are lots of other systems. There's lots of worlds. So, the powers that be, I'm calling the powers that want to be, I watch them and think, okay, you guys, I can't even say good luck. because I wouldn't wish them any luck. But ever so often I do send them a wish that they have somehow the grace to wake up and realize how foolish they look and how short-sighted they are. They think they've got the world by the tail. You know, the world has them by the short hairs. So that's all I'll say about that. Okay. Thanks for the question. Next question is from Allison, and she says, how can we trust getting on a spaceship when we're told over and over that we have been used for food and trafficking? Are those bad ETs gone from the planet yet? So, no, they're not. But the bad ETs typically, how would I say? They don't want to risk their own life for, you know, typically they're very, very careful about what they're up to. Okay. If there's, I think maybe the thing you were listening to was the truth about the solar flare, the micronova. Depending on whether that's a big flare or a little flare, will have some level or some degree of destruction and, needing to rebuild and et cetera. And need to make some effort to survive, perhaps. So, so there are some ships, some people, let me say it this way, there's actually a lot of people that are here who came here to hold a particular mindset that would help shift the consciousness of planet Earth into some of the higher levels of consciousness, higher frequencies. So those people have just, it's like, thank you for holding that. And they come from other groups of humans and who have said in a few cases, we will pick you up. Since you volunteered to go there and help, we will pick you up so that you don't have to suffer through that destruction if you have landed in a place where there will be some pretty heavy destruction. So, there's people who know that they're from elsewhere and who they're connected to. They will recognize I'll call it their family, their others, their people. They will recognize their people if it comes down to that. They'll just know. So I'm going to say a couple things. If you haven't bothered to reach out and set up a relationship or try to set up a relationship, start communicating with somebody out there, somebody that you can trust, and they haven't responded, and somebody comes along and says, you want a ride, honey? You better think twice. You haven't set up anything. You haven't succeeded at setting up a relationship. You don't know who's asking you to get on board. And if they're asking you to come with them, be aware that those bad ETs typically want somebody to destroy themselves. They want somebody who will agree to get on board. Okay, does that make sense? They don't want to abduct because they have this certain level of, it's kind of a twisted ethics, but they don't want to violate those ethics because then if they get caught, they're liable. Okay, so there are some people out there that are not trustworthy. People, are people across the entire cosmos. It's not as bad as what we have here right now. Right now, there's not very many honorable people in our government, in our businesses, in our world. The population has gone berserk. There's so much anger and so much rage. So, yeah, take the time, make the effort. Say to somebody, who's working in the light, that should be one of your qualifications. I want to connect with somebody who is working in and with the light. And if you don't get anything for a long time and you've made this effort and nobody appears to you, if you're driving down the road one day and 5 years has gone by since you started trying to connect, and all of a sudden there is a ship hovering over the road, that's your signal that you have been heard and recognized. Okay? If you don't get something that blatant, you can still say, is anyone hearing me? Give me a sign. If you are working in and with the light, give me a sign that works with the light or that does something with the light. And you'll get something if you have connected. And then you can say, would you pick me up? If the planet gets into trouble, give me a sign that you'll pick me up. And, that's the way to work with others. And the other thing I would say is if somebody comes to pick you up and they have not so good intentions, you're going to know that. You're going to feel that there's going to be this, I don't know. If it's a bunch of logical fear that they would run into, those beings won't even try. They're not going to waste their time if they know that you're just going to flip into logic and fear. That's why this setup of the relationship beforehand is important. Okay? Okay. Take care. Don't go for any rides with strangers until you've set up a relationship. Okay.